haven't said it in a while and it needs to be said. Fuck purity culture. Hey everyone, welcome to Ex-Fundie Diaries. My name is Ellie, my pronouns are she, her, and this video is the first in a new ongoing series that I'm calling Ex-Fundie Library. I read a lot of harmful Christian books growing up, and I have thoughts on them now that I'd like to share. Today, I'll be talking about the book Love and Respect by Emerson Eggerichs. This is a marriage book that I read while engaged in order to learn how to be a submissive and obedient Christian wife. It is an awful book with terrible gender roles and horrible excuses for abuse, and it really fucked me up at the time. It is also highly recommended by Focus on the Family, which is reason enough to throw it across the room. As anyone who has watched my channel will already know, I have an extremely different view of romantic relationships than the one promoted by this book and by Christian fundamentalism in general. Growing up, I was taught that the only right path for everyone is a lifelong monogamous relationship between a cisgender man and woman within the bounds of a sanctified marriage in which the man is the head of the relationship just as Christ is the head of the church. If it sounds like I just read from the What We Believe section of a random evangelical church's website, that's basically what they all say, leaving out the word cisgender. And I could recite that shit in my sleep. These days, I believe that there is no one right path. Everyone has a different path that works for them, and we should all respect and accept everyone's choices. For example, some people want to get married, and others don't need marriage in order to feel fulfilled in their romantic relationships. Some people want to be monogamous, and others prefer polyamory or other kinds of consensual non-monogamy. Some people don't want to be in romantic or sexual relationships at all. All of these choices involve people of all different genders, and all of these choices are valid. Above all, everyone needs both love and respect in their relationships. As you can see, I am super biased against this book, simply because of my progressive views. But there is actually conservative Christian criticism of Love and Respect as well. I found a few videos and articles by Gretchen Baskerville, who is the author of Life-Saving Divorce, and by Sheila Ray Gregory, who blogs at To Love, Honor, and Vacuum, and is the author of The Great Sex Rescue. Both of these authors explain how Emerson Eggerichs and his book enable and even support abuse in Christian marriages. Obviously, I have a very different worldview than both of these authors and disagree with them on many things. But I still appreciate their thorough critiques of the dangerous messages regarding abuse. Their videos and articles are the kind of resources I wish that my mom could have read while my dad was abusing her, in hopes that maybe they would help her leave him. I am glad that there are some people in the conservative Christian world who are bringing attention to this issue. Love and Respect is a very popular book in many Christian circles, and the messages that it gives about abuse are very dangerous. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Love and Respect is highly recommended by Focus on the Family. This is a fundamentalist Christian organization that was a staple in my household growing up. If you've never heard of them before, Fundie Fridays has a great video about them that I'll link down below. Focus on the Family aligns with the teachings of Love and Respect so much that they're actually the sponsor of the Love and Respect marriage conferences. Emerson Eggerichs himself credits James Dobson, the founder of Focus on the Family, with the success of his book.
And on a personal note, December of 2003, Dr. Dobson played a message that I'd given to about 600 or 700 women for 2 days on the radio program. And the fact is, you put us on the map. So he has just served us and honored us in an incredible way. But we are indebted to you, Doctor, and so thank you.
Eggerichs based Love and Respect on Ephesians 5:33. Each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. From that verse, he decided that he had found the secret to successful Christian marriages. Men and women not only have different roles required of them by God, but they also have different needs. Women need love, and men need respect. Now, that is utterly ridiculous to me at this point. People of all genders need both love and respect. Being loved and being respected are both basic human desires that have nothing to do with gender. But we all know Fundie's obsession with gender. And according to this book, just like in purity culture and the rest of Christian fundamentalism, most of the responsibility is on the women. Here is the first paragraph of the introduction, which is called "Love Alone is Not Enough." You may remember how the Beatles sang, "All you need is love." I absolutely disagree with that conclusion. 5 out of 10 marriages today are ending in divorce because love alone is not enough. Yes, love is vital, especially for the wife, but what we have missed is the husband's need for respect. This book is about how the wife can fulfill her need to be loved by giving her husband what he needs: respect. Okay, so much to unpack here. Let's start with the fact that Eggerichs has already contradicted himself. He says love is vital, especially for the wife, implying that husbands need love too. But wait a minute, I thought husbands need respect and wives need love. Nope, apparently not. Apparently love is a universal human need, but men are special. They need something extra that they're not getting in their Christian marriages: respect. And it's their wives' fault that they're not getting it. As it turns out, that's what this book is really about. It's not really a book for couples to both work on their relationship together. It's a book for wives to fix and save their Christian marriages. Remember, Eggerichs says, this book is about how the wife can fulfill her need to be loved by giving her husband what he needs: respect. This implies that women must earn love in their marriages. Apparently, men are given unconditional love by default, but love for women is conditional. It's dependent on their ability to show their husbands unconditional respect. This is really the book's core endorsement of abuse. Because if a husband is abusive, a wife must show him respect, regardless of how she feels about his treatment of her. And if she doesn't, he doesn't have to show her love, because it is her job to fulfill her own need for love by showing him respect. If he behaves in an unloving way, it will always be justified if he doesn't feel respected. And he gets to decide the parameters of what feels respectful to him. In the end, he can do whatever the fuck he wants, and it is ultimately her fault. Eggerichs says, no husband feels fond feelings of affection and love in his heart when he believes his wife has contempt for who he is as a human being. Ironically, the deepest need of the wife, to feel loved, is undermined by her disrespect. And again, what ridiculous nonsense. I feel like most people do not have fond feelings of affection for someone that they feel has contempt for them as a human being. If they do, it's probably related to their trauma and their resulting low self-esteem. Gender has nothing to do with it. Everyone wants both love and respect in a relationship. I asked my husband what he thought of this, and he said that he sees love and respect as intertwined in a relationship. He said that he sees respect as a part of love, and that he wouldn't want to be respected without love. Without love, what's the point of being in a relationship? But of course, Eggerichs disagrees. He says, we are seeing God work in remarkable ways when men and women submit themselves wholeheartedly to this biblical design for marriage. Before I go on, full disclosure, I did not reread this entire book. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. What I have decided to do is give you the highlights. Honestly, most of the pages are pretty much the same thing over and over again, so I think the highlights will give you a good sense of this book as a whole. So after the introduction, the first part is the crazy cycle. Without love, she reacts without respect. And without respect, he reacts without love. And then she reacts without respect, he reacts without love, and it keeps going. Eggerichs sees men and women as very different, as he will remind us over and over again in this book. This section is called "We're as Different as Pink and Blue." The way I like to picture the difference between men and women is that the woman looks at the world through pink sunglasses that color all she sees. The man, however, looks at the world through blue sunglasses that color all he sees. Men and women can look at precisely the same situation and see life much differently. Inevitably, their pink and blue lenses cause their interpretation of things to be at odds to some degree. Moving on to the next section, called "Scientific Research Confirms the Centrality of Love and Respect." And this is actually my favorite section because he tries to use research to back up his framework and ends up doing the exact opposite. The woman absolutely needs love and the man absolutely needs respect. It's as simple and as difficult as that. Interestingly enough, scientific research confirms that love and respect are the foundation of a successful marriage. Dr. John Gottman, professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Washington, led a research team that spent 20 years studying 2,000 couples who had been married 20 to 40 years to the same partner. These people came from diverse backgrounds and had widely differing occupations and lifestyles. But one thing was similar: the tone of their conversations. As these couples talked together, almost always there was what Gottman calls a strong undercurrent of two basic ingredients: love and respect. These are the direct opposite of, and antidote for, contempt, perhaps the most corrosive force in marriage. So he tries to use that study to say that scientific research backs up his view of love and respect. But what the results said is that both partners need love and respect. It said nothing about the man needs this and the woman needs this. So we could probably close the book and just leave it right there. But let's go through some more, shall we? Part 2 is all about the energizing cycle. His love motivates her respect, which motivates his love, and on and on and on. And according to Eggerichs, there are 2 different ways that couples can do this. He says, as we learned in part 1, husbands need particular help with love, and wives need particular help with respect. To simplify matters, I use 2 acronyms containing 6 areas of key importance for each spouse. Couple, C-O-U-P-L-E, is advice for husbands with separate chapters on C for closeness, O for openness, U for understanding, P for peacemaking, L for loyalty, and E for esteem. Chairs, C-H-A-I-R-S, covers advice for wives and includes separate chapters on C for conquest, H for hierarchy, A for authority, I for insight, R for relationship, and S for sexuality. Because we all know that men are sexual and women are not, right? To be honest, I don't have much to say about couple, which is the acronym that husbands are supposed to use to love their wives. Because closeness, openness, understanding, peacemaking, loyalty, and esteem kind of feels like the bare minimum to me. I think that everyone wants that, and it's not too much to ask from your partner. So I don't really have anything to add to that, but I have a lot of thoughts about chairs, the acronym that wives are supposed to use to respect their husbands. Yikes. Chairs. How to spell respect to your husbands. Ladies, we have taken your husbands through couple to help them become more loving men. Now it's your turn. In the next 6 chapters, we will take you through the acronym CHAIRS to give you practical, biblical ways that will help you become more respectful women. Wives do not need a lot of coaching on being loving. It is something God built into them, and they do it naturally. However, they do need help with respect. A wise woman builds her house, but a foolish woman tears hers down. Oh, this grates on me so much. Can't you just feel the patronizing tone that Eggerichs uses when he talks to the ladies? Ugh, which I hate being called a lady. And can we just pause to appreciate the fact that, once again, here is a Christian man telling a woman about herself. Not cool, dude. Not cool. The first letter in CHAIRS stands for conquest. Appreciate his desire to work and achieve. By conquest, I mean the natural, inborn desire of the man to go out and conquer the challenges of his world, to work and achieve. As a wife, if you can start to understand how important your husband's work is to him, you will take a giant step toward communicating respect and honor, 2 things that he values even more than your love. I just don't think that's true. And I think that that's damaging to men and women to say that. My husband doesn't feel this way, and he obviously doesn't speak for all men. But seriously, this is just, sometimes it just blows my mind, the things that I used to believe. This is just gonna be my face the whole time. Okay. So he anticipated the fact that I would have a hard time with that, and now he's going to explain it to me. That a husband values respect more than love is very difficult for many women to grasp. God has made you to love, and you see life through pink lenses that are focused on love. You give love, you want love, and you may not quite understand why your husband does not operate the same way. When I say a husband values respect more than love, do I mean that your husband does not value love at all? Of course he values your love, more than words can describe, but he spells love R-E-S-P-E-C-T. I thought he spelled it C-H-A-I-R-S. Which is it? Also, yes, of course he wants respect. But again, respect is a part of love, and she wants respect too. Okay. So here's a whole thing about, her being the helpmeet and all of that, blah, blah, blah. We've read it before. So now we move on to the next letter, H, which is for hierarchy. Appreciate his desire to protect and provide. What is the real meaning of biblical hierarchy? Over the years, I have talked to many a wife who is so controlled by her fear of her husband's headship that she overreacts. By habitually showing contempt and verbally abusing him, I believe, however, that when a woman understands hierarchy from a true biblical point of view, it relieves most, if not all, of her fears. Will the concept of biblical hierarchy lead to abuse? Will a man take advantage of being head of the family by putting down and even abusing his wife and children? Yes, this is possible, but because it is possible does not mean a woman should refuse to allow her husband to be the head. If a husband is evil-willed, the abuse will happen anyway, no matter what the family structure is. No. This structure is inherently abusive, and it helps enable abuse. It encourages abuse. He goes on, any hierarchical role given to him has nothing to do with the abuse. The evil-willed man always treats those around him abusively. If a man is good-willed, his wife's respect and his hierarchical position will not cause him to abuse because that is not his nature. He will not use his position as chair of the family against those he is to love and protect. Nope. Do not agree with that. And then on this page, I underlined 3 different things. The pressure of the secular culture in which Christian families live often cause confusion and contradiction. See, we have to keep brainwashing ourselves to tell ourselves, no, this is totally good. This is totally fine. Don't question it. Step back in line. On this page, I underlined, he wants to be the umbrella of protection. Oh, the umbrella of protection. There it is. And then, men are very sensitive to put-downs in the area of providing for the family. All right, the A in chairs stands for authority. Appreciate his desire to serve and to lead. This chapter has a section called, Does Scripture Teach Mutual Submission? And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but spoiler alert, he believes the Bible does not teach mutual submission. I know you're very surprised by that. He believes that authority is very important and that it belongs to the man. And on this page, I underlined, if a decision must be made, the wife is called upon to defer to her husband, trusting God to guide him to make a decision out of love for her, as the responsible head of the marriage. Again, this is just wild. Going back through this stuff is wild to me because it's just so sad. It's so sad that I fully embraced this belief that I was inherently less than, that I was less intelligent, that I was less capable, simply because I'm a woman. It's really depressing. This section is called Husbands Are Responsible to Make the Call. And down here at the bottom it says, does this mean that a wife must submit to something illegal, wrong, or evil? Should she go along with being beaten by her husband or watching him beat the children? Should she submit to his plans to do something dishonest or unethical? The clear scripture answer is, of course not, because that would be preposterous. Would it be though? I don't think it would be with this worldview. It certainly wasn't in my family. I think that he's really emphasizing here these sort of out there examples, doing something evil, beating the wife and children. There is so much abusive behavior that does not necessarily fit into those labels. And also, who gets to decide what fits those labels? The husband. The husband gets to decide. So if he is abusive, he's obviously not going to be like, I'm abusive. You shouldn't listen to me. He's going to do the opposite. And that's what my dad did. He used books like these and held them over my mom's head on a regular basis. It was all part of his abuse tactics. When somebody has to call the shots, the husband is responsible to do it. How should a wife act if she strongly disagrees with her husband about some issue? 1 Timothy 2:12 has some advice. Paul writes, I do not allow a woman to exercise authority over a man, but to remain quiet. Now, if Paul ever penned a sexist line, this would seem to be it. I can think of a lot more sexist things that Paul has said. But the Bible is not sexist. As discussed in part 1, women can win their husbands without a word through their chaste and respectful behavior. 1 Peter 3:1-2. Is Peter saying that women are insignificant? Of course not. What he is saying is that your quiet and gentle spirit will melt your man's heart. Once again, the responsibility is on her to make him not be abusive. And again, from personal experience of watching my parents, my mom believed in that verse. She was actively praying through that verse and trying to do that verse in her relationship with my dad. She was trying to win him over with her obedience. If you're in a conflict and you remain respectful and quiet as you distance yourself a bit instead of preaching, lecturing, or criticizing, what will he do? Well, it depends. If your quietness is the right kind of quietness, respectful and dignified, not pouty and sour, he will move toward you. He will want to comfort you and take care of you. In essence, he will want to show you love. For the good-willed husband, the wife's quiet and respectful anger will act as a magnet. This is so harmful. This is so harmful. There's a lot more in this section of authority. I think it's probably the worst one. I mean, they're all pretty bad, but I think this is probably the worst one. But I don't know. I think I'm going to leave it at that for this section. Just know that it doesn't get better. The next letter is I, which stands for insight. Appreciate his desire to analyze and counsel. And the gist of this chapter is the woman is unintelligent and can't trust herself, so she needs to trust her husband, and he will tell her what to do. For instance, this section is called It Was Eve, Not Adam, Who Was Deceived. And I'm not going to read the whole section, but I think that title speaks for itself, and that was one of my dad's big talking points too. He would say that all the time to my mom, that it was Eve who was deceived, not Adam. And he would use that as a reason to say to my mom, you're being deceived. The enemy is deceiving you. You have to trust what I'm saying, even if it goes against your perception of reality. The next letter is R for relationship. Appreciate his desire for shoulder-to-shoulder friendship. And all I really have to say about this one is that it's just really insulting that he thinks that only men want shoulder-to-shoulder friendship. It's basically just all about telling the wife that she should go spend time with her husband and like show an interest in what he likes to do. Why does Eggerichs think that women don't want that too? That anyone of any gender wouldn't want their partner to show an interest in what they like and that they wouldn't like to spend time together? I don't know. It's just, it doesn't even make sense, and it's just rude, and I don't like it. Not that I like any of this. Okay, the last letter in chairs is S for sexuality. Appreciate his desire for sexual intimacy. And this was absolutely something that, as I was reading this book for the first time as a 21-year-old, I felt really unseen by. I felt really shamed by this section because, as I have shared in other videos, I've always had a very high sex drive. And not only that, but for me, sex is a really important and meaningful way that I like to express my love in my relationship. And according to Eggerichs, that's like backwards. And it absolutely made me feel like a freak, like a weirdo, like something was wrong with me. And actually, these kinds of messages made my husband feel similarly like there was something wrong with him. Because also, as I have shared, he doesn't have as high of a sex drive as me. And while he values and enjoys sex, it's not on the top of his priority list. It's a much higher priority for me in both a physical and an emotional, relational way. This section is called They Kicked the Devil Out of Bed. And I underlined this sentence. Just as the devil will do everything he can to bring two people together sexually before marriage, he does everything he can to keep them away from each other after marriage. I also underlined, sex is symbolic of his deeper need, respect. And then he says, by way of analogy, a wife needs emotional release through talking. When that need is met, she feels love. When a man refuses to talk, that symbolizes to her that he does not love her or care about her need. A husband has a need for physical release through sexual intimacy. When a wife refuses, that symbolizes to him that she does not care about him and does not respect him and his need. A wife also needs to think about how unfair it is to say to her husband, "Have eyes only for me," and continually turn him down when he approaches her sexually. As a wife, you spell respect to your husband when you appreciate his sexual desire for you. This part is about a mother who shames her daughter for not having sex with her husband enough. This part is about how he's going to cheat on you if you don't have enough sex with him. I underlined, a man who strays is usually given total blame for his affair, but in many cases, he is the victim of temptation that his wife helped bring upon him. This section is called "A Dose of Respect Beats a Dose of Viagra Any Day." Oh, that makes me cringe so much. Yeah, like I said, that section and teachings like that were extremely damaging to me as a highly sexual woman. Everything he said in there, I heard in church over and over again. I read in so many different devotionals. It's just so pervasive, and it's really core to purity culture. I haven't said it in a while, and it needs to be said. Fuck purity culture, for many reasons, not just that one. This next part gives us some insight into Eggerichs and his childhood. He says, "My father would become enraged at my mother. To offset his strong feelings of personal guilt, he would take offense at things my mother innocently did and then explode. But she never saw herself as a victim. Not once in all my years growing up did I hear Mom badmouth Dad. When I griped about him, she would reply, 'Your dad lost his dad when he was 3 months old, so he doesn't know how to be a daddy.' My mother could have moved in for the kill, defaming my father in order to bolster herself and win my heart. She chose not to do that. It would have been easy for my mother to have the victim mindset, but she realized that that never got you anywhere. My mother made a choice to be positive. She knew if she could discover creative alternatives to the conflict, she would never believe for a moment she was helpless and hopeless, and she never was. Eventually, Mom was instrumental in bringing Dad to Christ." My suggest to Emerson Eggerichs would be to go to therapy rather than telling everyone else what to do, because I can empathize with him about what he had to go through as a child in watching this dynamic between his parents. At the same time, though, he has no real understanding of what abuse actually is. When I read this while skimming back through this book, I saw these words like enraged, his father became enraged, and he would explode. And I was pretty easily able to guess what that actually meant. And going back to the power and control wheel, we can see that domestic violence is a collection of abuse and control tactics. So if his mother was to stand up to his father or leave his father, she wouldn't be seeing herself as a victim. She would be recognizing and affirming her reality, that she was being abused and that it wasn't right. And I actually found an interview that Eggerichs did in which he was telling this part of his story, and he said, "Well, my father was full of rage, and one time he tried to strangle my mother. And then a few seconds later, he said, but he wasn't physically abusive. That was the only time. And maybe he only saw one instance of it. It's very unlikely that it was only that one time. There could have been a similar dynamic to my family, where his father was physically abusing his mother in another room where he couldn't see. But even if it was just that one time, that is physical abuse, and it's wrong, and it's dangerous. Even if it was just the verbal abuse or the rage, right? What does that mean, rage? Was he throwing things? Was he kicking things? Was he breaking things? That's all part of domestic violence. Eggerichs either doesn't understand that or is rejecting that in favor of, oh, abuse is just if he's actively beating the wife. And this is a really, really damaging message to send. It enables and supports abuse in these Christian marriages. Part 3 is the rewarded cycle. His love, regardless of her respect, regardless of his love, regardless of her respect. And it keeps going and going and going. The last part I'd like to share from this book is what Eggerichs calls a prayer of commitment. I like to call it a prayer of denying my feelings and spiritualizing my problems. Dear Father, I need you. I cannot love or respect perfectly, but I know you hear me when I ask you for help. Forgive me where I have been unloving or disrespectful. I open my heart to you, Father. I will not be fearful or angry at you or my spouse. I see myself and my spouse in a whole new light, and I forgive my spouse. I will appreciate my spouse as different, not wrong. Lord, fill my heart with love and reverence for you. Ultimately, this is about you and me. It isn't about my spouse. Thank you for this enlightenment. My greatest reward comes from doing this unto you. Prepare me this day for those moments of conflict. I especially ask you to put love or respect in my heart when I feel unloved or disrespected. There is no credit for loving or respecting when it is easy. At this moment, I believe you hear me. I anticipate your response. I have on my heart what is on your heart. I thank you in advance for helping me take the next step. I believe you will reward me, and I believe this touches your heart as I do this unto you. It's between you and me. I am a true believer. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, reading Love and Respect when I was engaged really fucked me up. It took the damaging messages that I had been taught growing up and solidified them in a powerful way as I began my new life as a young married woman. It reinforced an unhealthy and unbalanced view of romantic relationships. It strengthened a detrimental view of myself and my worth as a human being. And it supported a dangerous framework for viewing my parents' marriage and my dad's domestic violence against my mom. When I read this book for the first time, I would come across parts that made me feel deeply uncomfortable. I would think, this doesn't seem right, or that's definitely not my experience. But I was trained to mistrust my intuition and my critical thinking and to simply trust God. I was taught to reject my doubts and to simply accept the teachings that I was being given. God's ways are higher than our ways, and the wisdom of God is foolishness to man. So I underlined the shit out of this book, and I made myself believe it. But I don't believe it anymore. I now understand that we are all worthy of love, and we all want respect in our relationships. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.